All right, so what we'll do is we'll start by, of course, right here is Elizabethville. And to start with this, whenever you go outside of Elizabethville, you are in Washington Township. Okay? If we go over here to Berrysburg, outside of Berrysburg is, anybody know what township? Good. Mifflin, yes. And that's named for Governor Mifflin. May have heard of the school district. Okay, so let's zoom out here and let's take a look. First of all, what exactly is the Lykens Valley? Does anybody know? I would expect that. And the reason why I expect that is to tell you that we've never had a geographer or cartographer actually say this is the Lykens Valley. Okay? It has never actually happened. Lykens Valley is actually undefined. We do not have an actual Lykens Valley. We can assume, and what we call the Lykens Valley is this: from the Susquehanna River which is, of course, right here, and goes up through to Lykens, although there are some that would claim Lykens is actually part of the Williams Valley. If you come over here to Gratz, we would also include that in the Lykens Valley, but again, there are some that would say Gratz is part of the Tri Valley. So Lykens Valley is undefined from the Susquehanna River up through, let's include, for our sake of discussion, Gratz and Lykens as well. When you get to Wiccanisco, we're going to call that Williams Valley. Now, let me point out some key parts here. Does anybody know what mountain this is? It is not the Elizabethville Mountain, although I will give you that Elizabethville is right next door to it. Good. Very good. The Berry Mountain. Yes, this is Berry Mountain. And if you go up here to where Indian Trail is, okay, and come back here, this development is actually called Berry Mountain Estates. All right, and that's why the Berry Mountain. Does anybody know what mountain this is? No? Between Loyalton and Gratz. This is called Short Mountain. And it's called Short Mountain not because it is lower in elevation. In fact, at points of Short Mountain, it's actually higher than the Berry Mountain. It's called Short Mountain because, well, you tell me. Anybody figure out why? It does not stretch to the Susquehanna River. So they looked at it and called it Short Mountain. Okay. I'll also point out something else while we're here. If you are at the square in Lykens and go almost directly due north, you'll come out right at the Gratz Fairgrounds. A lot of people did use this type of foot traffic, okay, and footpaths to get to the mines, which Short Mountain was loaded with them. The biggest one being right in here, which was the Short Mountain Colliery. I'll point this out as well. If you notice the ponds there, those are called the sulfur ponds. Has anybody ever walked to them by any chance? It is game lands. You can walk to it. It's not private property unless you walk over on this side. Over here, this is all game lands. And the reason why those ponds were put in, really about 70 years ago, is to catch the sulfur that is still leaking out of the mines. And they're put in there so that they can actually filter out the impurities so they don't actually make it the whole way to the Wiccanisco Creek, which is right here. But if you look closely, you can see they still do. What's another name for that creek? Anybody know? This creek right here. The Wiconisco. They call it the Black Creek, and the reason why they call it that is for two reasons. First of all, it's very black from the coal runoff. Second of all, because nothing could live in it because of this acid water. And this wasn't the only place. And we will definitely explore that when we get to our unit on coal. Now, let me go up here. If we go up to Tower City, you can actually see where they clear cut. Now, this is getting into some private property right here. But right here, this is not man-made, this rock formation. They actually call these the rattling rocks because the water that flows underneath it makes a rattling sound. And it actually does sound like a rattlesnake. Not that you want to take for granted that it's water, you know. But the water that flows underground here, if there's not a whole lot of traffic on 209, which is right over here, you can actually hear the water. And that is the origin of the Wiconisco Creek. Does anybody know where the Wiconisco Creek dumps into the Susquehanna River by any chance? Millersburg, yes. So we'll come back down 209 here. As I had mentioned once before, you go through Lykens, right here, Loyalton. And again, Loyalton is not a town. There is no government of Loyalton. This is Washington Township. There's no zip code. There's no post office. If I come down here to Millersburg, right here is where the Wiconisco Creek dumps in. Now, if you were to walk up there to Tower City and try to find this beyond that rock formation, it's very difficult to find because it's basically a swamp the whole way down. We're going to watch a video on that. Okay? All right, so we got Millersburg here. This is Route 209. Okay, keep that in mind. This road here, 225. Does anybody know what they actually also call this from Halifax over to Elizabethville? They actually call it something else. Does anybody know? A name, not a number, a name. They actually call this Armstrong Valley Road. Now, I remember when I started running ambulance calls, I can remember getting, emergency calls to whatever the address was on Armstrong Valley Road. Now, I'd lived here all my life, and I always say, where is Armstrong Valley Road? To me, it's 225, but it's just another name for it. Now, 147 splits in Halifax and goes right up the river and goes into Millersburg. Now, let me show you one other kind of nifty thing here. I'm sure many of you, maybe even every day, travel on 209. Have you ever realized that 209 actually stops in Millersburg or begins in Millersburg, whatever word you want to use? It actually stops right there. And some of you catching on, are aware of that. If you have people coming from out of the area and they're on 209 and all of a sudden it stops, it can drive people crazy. Think about it. You're on a road that all of a sudden stops. Did you ever realize that Route 83 is like that? If you go down to Colonial Park, it actually stops right there when you get on 81. That can drive you crazy too. I never realized that, how much that can confuse people, until one time I was over here at the Ned Smith Center, and there were some people that actually drove up from Maryland over here on 11 and 15, and they took the Millersburg ferry. How many of you ever took the ferry ride? Okay, about half of you the way it looks. So you're familiar coming across the river, and they went up to the Ned Smith Center to visit for the day, and they were telling me how they were confused that all of a sudden 209 ended there, and I never really realized that because I lived here all my life and never thought much of it. But when you get to the square in Millersburg, you got to go one way or another, and then you're on 147. You're no longer on 209. From there, it runs to Kingston, New York. Okay? Had a student for his local history project that actually started in Millersburg and drove the whole way up to Kingston, New York, and took pictures of the landmarks on the way. Him and his mom went on a road trip. on 209. Yep, went the whole way to where it crosses the Delaware River into New Jersey and kept going to Kingston, New York. Before Route 81 and 83 were put in, and the Turnpike, Route 78, that was the way, if you were in this valley, that was the way you had to go to get to New York City, actually. You had to go 209. Yeah. How about this mountain over here? Does anybody know this one? Montongo or Macontongo? Yep. And let me also show you this. I showed you this before. The name of this creek is also the Montongo or Macontongo. Some people put the K sound in there. They do that with Monoy City also. When I was in school, we used to call it Mockinoy City, Mockinoy Area School District. This creek is the border of Dauphin County. Okay, and I showed you that before, but again, just to reiterate, and 225 runs through Pillow and goes up to Shamokin and keeps going. I'm not sure where exactly that ends. Over here, we got Gratz. Okay, and remember, outside of Gratz, you have Lykens Township, which again, pointing that out, that really confuses people. As Lykens Township goes the whole way over to Pillow. And to actually keep in mind where that township is, if you live out in here in Luxembourg Road or anything like that, you actually have a Lykens zip code. Yeah, it actually goes up to Klingerstown. That's right. Like if my dad's in Klingerstown, there you go. By the way, I did also take a ride the other day to see exactly where the township line is, and you're right, it is up there by. Am I off there? Road caps. Got to keep going yet. No. No, you're too far. Spring back. Spring right there. Yeah, I think it's actually about right in here. Yeah. No, wait, that's not road caps. Road caps is back here, right? Yeah, but they said it. I think it was like in the beginning of town. That's not it. Yeah, I'm too far. Right here. Yeah. And I think this house is the last house in Upper Dauphin District. And this one's not. Okay. So I think this is it. And you can tell actually right there where that speed limit sign is, and that they actually have a township marker there if you look close. Okay, so we got, once again, let's go back to this. Montongo, okay. What's this one? Short. And we'll go over here to Barry, yep. Lykens, over here we got Barrysburg, Pillow, Route 25. Don't confuse 25 with 225, okay? And don't confuse that with 209. What's that? Question? Okay. Let me show you something else here. We'll get into this in this chapter, and I'll show you this probably a lot more. Right here, in this area right here, you got the middle elementary school. Right here is where the first inhabitants of this area lived. A guy named Andrew Lykens lived here. And this is the location of the Lykens Valley Massacre, which is actually our next chapter. And we'll go through this story. The founder of the valley, for whom it is named, Andrew Lykens. And I just need to vent. And when I'm done with this, Dellinger, thanks for listening. But you know what really bothers me in life? Besides people that text while driving? The fact that they put a sewer plant through the namesake of our Valley's farm. I mean, couldn't you put that somewhere else? Really? A sewer plant? Really? Are you kidding me? Gavin. I'd be lying if I'd say that stuff keeps me up at night, but I just need to vent. So thanks for listening. Okay, so you got the Wickanisco Creek right here. Great farmland, and that's why he lived here. Now, let me go across the way here, and again, most of you are probably very familiar with this. If we go north at the square in Loyalton, does anybody know what's out here in the field? A memorial. Do you know who it is? That is John Peter Huffman Memorial, who actually lived. Yeah, I figured the corn's probably going to be up. We won't be able to see it. But we'll definitely talk about him, and I'll show you. It's actually back in here. He was one of the first inhabitants of northern Dauphin County as well. When Andrew Lykens lived here, he lived here also. Lived right here on the farm, which is now the Bush family farm. About, I'm going to say maybe 15, 20 years ago, up here at the mountain, they believe some of his family was buried up there. We had a very, very wet spring. And that one time in the summer, I remember the rain just came down. I mean, we're talking like 5 inches in an hour. And it just came running down this mountain like a river. What happened is it pushed the soil away and actually washed bones down into the field. Kind of freaked people out. But I mean, I'm talking hundreds of bones just laying there in that field. And obviously, they were human bones. Don't know exactly who it was because nothing was marked up here. Yeah, wish I would have taken a picture of it. Okay. All right. And of course, we'll go through some more areas in particular as we go through the chapter.